What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another dope edition of Define Your Legacy. I'm your host, Theus Elijah McBee. Before we tap into today's episode, just want to shout out, all right, the online store of Define Your Legacy, which can be found at the link in the description of this episode. All right, so feel free to check out the online store of Define Your Legacy, which can be found at the link in the description of this episode. All right, and to tap in, to jump right into today's episode, we have Malik on the show. Good morning, good brother. How we doing?
Hey, good morning. Good morning. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well, man. Appreciate you for being on the show.
Absolutely, man. You know, I had to tap in. I had to get with you. So I'm glad that you offered the invitation, and I'm here.
Absolutely. So if you could just introduce yourself, right, and tell the world what it is that you do and the value that you provide.
Oh man. So I'm Malik Champlain. The company that I'm coming here talking to you about today is Always Leverage Consulting. So I have multiple entities because I'm a serial entrepreneur, somebody who really helps people 10x their business, really helps with helping people leverage. So if you catch me on IG, my name there is Leverage with Malik, because the idea is that I want us to be able to take what we have and be able to amplify that, right? I want to be able to give you credit, especially business credit tips, because we really got to know about how that business credit works. I want to be able to help you understand different ways to conduct and create passive income for yourself so you can leverage your time. And I really want you to earn back your freedom. And it's really through my years, 10, 12 years of banging my head in the rat race, in the corporate world, and starting businesses, and then being able to use my knowledge to help mentor and consult others. But if I'm really going to say who I am, though, I'm the unspoken words of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. I represent the brother that rock chains and those that write checks. So I got a little spoken word in me too.
And that is important too, because we talked even before we started recording the idea of being able to relate to your audience, right? And the idea of, like, you know, you are who you are, right? And one thing that you mentioned was spending the 10 to 12 years through, I guess, trial and error, if you will, right? So talk to me too about that phase of your life, right? Like going through either the rat race or going through a point where it's like, all right, what's next, or what else am I doing?
Yeah, so I'll keep it like this, and I like the way that you put it, right? You got to be you, and that's something that I learned along the way. One of the things, and I talk about from an emotional standpoint, is that when you get into this corporate world, especially for me in first generation, right? When I mean first generation, I'm talking like my mom had me at 17, right? In Brooklyn, New York, like we made it like out the mud. I know people talk about it, but like I remember those apartments where we were in the bottom apartment. I couldn't lay on the floor because it was dirty. The bugs were in the cereal, right? And we couldn't wait for my stepfather to get home from jail, right? Because when he got home, that's when we had more money, so we could move out that apartment, right? And I talk about that in the book that I write called Passion, Hunger, Drive, Live Your Dreams, Not Your Fears. So I talk about those earlier stages, but what I'm really getting to about being first gen is that you don't get those nuggets of mentorship. So you're going through what you're going through for the first time. And I had a problem with imposter syndrome, right? I would walk in these spaces and I would try to assimilate into the spaces, right? I would try to be the best version of what I thought they wanted me to be, trying to maneuver around the stereotypes they had about me, because I was always in these primarily white spaces. And I didn't know really who I was. So I'm 22, 24, 26, trying to navigate, trying to, do my best, because I just became a husband, just became a father. And I'm thinking to myself, man, once I hit 50, I'm good. Once I hit 75, I'm good. Then it was like, once I hit that 100K, like, yo, we eating real good. And when you get there, you don't think about the sacrifice. You don't think about the fact that they're leveraging me. But the truest thing is this: I was working for the state in 2016. And in Connecticut, what you know is that when you work for the state, man, look, once I sign up for the state, it's 20 or 25 years, and then I get to retire. I get my pension, I get to do my thing. But the state had a crisis, a financial crisis. So the thing that I thought was a rock, right? The story that my mama told me, the story that everybody told me about getting that government job, getting that state job, that how secure that was actually a liability. Because 98% of my income was coming from that. And then I'm one of the newer guys in the state. And then what happens is they lay me off. And, but do they care about the house I just bought? They care about that car in the driveway? They care about me feeding my family? No. But this is where it comes back. And I don't want to jump, but like, this is where it comes back to when they say stay ready so you don't have to get ready, like I don't even like, I'm so much, I stay dangerous, bro. Like I stay dangerous. So like the story wasn't like 2016 happened, I foreclosed, repoed my car. No, we don't do those. I was smart enough to know that my skill set from running around the streets, that deductive reason that like, look, you can't put all your eggs in one basket. I at least understood this, was that around that time at my church, they started a thing called Financial Peace University with Dave Ramsey. Me and my wife took it. It was like we're a year and a half into being married. We took it and it was the best thing that we could have did. So we snowballed $60 into $1,500 by the time I got laid off. And when I moved from Mass back to Connecticut with the job, I knew, you know what? I'm still kind of new here. I don't care what the state tells me. I went from a single family, and you already know, having to talk your wife into buying a multifamily, but I already had it in my head. Because when I bought the single family, all right, I bought that back in 2012. The weekend I bought it, I moved my brother and my cousin in. My rent was, my mortgage, principal, insurance, taxes, interest was $640. Both of them were paying me $500. I was already making $350, right? Off the jump, just knowing like, yo, I gotta hustle. I gotta learn how to like reduce some of the spending. And then I went to rent it out to Section 8, right? The single family. Then I went to the 2-family. So now I'm making income and I'm not paying rent. And I'm then snowball $1,500. So when they hit me, and this is like, I'm not lying to you, right? This is a part of my life I call pink slip and thank you. When they hit me, right? I was hired for this job from the man that hired me. He had to come lay me off, tell me this whole story. I wrote him a letter because I knew it was coming in a card, and I gave it to him. I said, before you say anything, here's a card. And then he starts crying, and he's like, do you know how hard it is? I had to lay off hundreds of people. And this is the first like thank you card. So now he's crying on my shoulder while laying me off. Right. And I thanked him because I said, thank you for removing the invisible chains I had around my mind. Thank you for removing those things, because now I'm in a position where I can go get it. Because what you don't understand is, right, I'm getting out the mud, right? That back against the wall, like y'all don't get it. Like I'm so hungry right now. And what it did was it made me take my real estate more serious. But really, I just dove in, and 2 months later, I wrote my first book. Right after that, I started my professional, like I increased my speaking to consulting. And then I got the Hartford Business Journal 40 under 40. I got asked to do a TEDx. And then I just started taking off from there. But that's not the full journey, because I wish I could just tell you that I was so courageous and I just ran out there and just did it. I had my second daughter, and I kept thinking about, right, security. So I put all those things on the back burner and jumped back in with the state, because they called me back and said, we want you back a year later. So all this success, and then I jumped back in just to get right back into the rat race. And it took me about 3 to 6 months where I just was like completely miserable. But I remember telling myself, now you did this, right? And you're telling yourself you're doing this, you're falling on the sword for your family, but you can't be the shell of the man you were supposed to be. You can't be the shell of a man that God had placed you to be. Like, you have to reach your full potential. And I kept telling myself, like, yo, you got to do it. And then I just created my own reality. And then I left the state on my own terms this time. And then I said, look, I just added so much value to my package of being able to create passive income, leverage my time, really understanding systems. And now I'm able to do that in a way where I can give my time and my freedom to my family. And then most of all, I can use my creative genius, right? My cultural influence, my thought leading to do what it is that I do most successfully, right? Living in that passion, hunger, and drive.
Now, when you first got laid off, right, it sounds like your safety net, quote unquote, was ripped away and taken away from you immediately. And you wrote a thank you letter, or you wrote a letter in response, right? So did you feel like hungry immediately, right? Did you feel like, all right, I got to go out and get it right now? Like, how long was that process between you being laid off and you having the mentality of, all right, hustler mentality? Because it doesn't sound like, you took time to yourself to regroup. Like, it sounded like it was an instant, all right, I got to get to it. So was there ever, I guess, a grace period for you to kind of get, your mental right, or your way of thinking back to the way it should be? Or was it really just, okay, I got laid off on Tuesday, On Wednesday, I'm in grind mode.
You know, when you ever be like waiting for something, but you almost feel like you have like working for the state. Sometimes they make it so good that they make it just good enough where you feel like you can't leave. Because like, how can I justify this to my wife, right? Or even like the people around me, right? Because you start thinking about others' perceptions. It's like maybe there is something here, right? Like just stay still, do the same thing every day, and get to the cheese, right? At the end, that everyone else around you, like it could make you look crazy when everyone is like they made it. They're like, I'm done, I'm good, and you're like, yo, this is the beginning. Like this is the transition stage. So I would say when I heard the news, like I knew, but I would say the only thing I was hesitant about, and this is just a personal insecurity at the time, because I'm 28-ish, right, at the time, and I'm thinking to myself, like, see, like I've been lucky to have I have a wife who's been with me since I was living in my car. She used to drive 2 hours to come see me, to go hang out this little pizza shop, and then like bring me some stuff and like hang out with me, like when I was living in my car, when I was living in this back room with bed bugs from a professor from Harvard. Like, I'm just being honest. So I already knew that she was with it, but like I started like building us a life. And I just felt like, yo, the only thing I remember having to tell her was probably like, I'm not somebody who gets nervous, but I just was like, because it was about me being a man, right? Like this idea that man produces, right? This thing I got from like, my grandfather, right? Being a man. And but once again, man, like this is why it's so good to have you a Proverbs 31, man. When you have a good wife, you have a good thing, man. Like that's just worth more than like it's priceless. I came home, told her, and this is what happens when your wife knows that you a hustler. Like she's just like, okay, great. Like I already know what you about to do. And for me, that's a battery. You gotta feel me? That's the battery. That's the battery. Like, oh, say less. Say less, because I'm a dog. That's it. Like I'm a dog. Like I'm a dog. Like the alarm clock don't have to wake me, man. It don't push me, it pulls me, right? Like I gotta do it. Cause that motivation, right? Having those babies upstairs, having wife, like, bro, like we either I gotta win or I gotta win. Right? There's no nothing. So then it was just like, all right, let's get it. Because if you think I'm gonna work hard for you, you can't even imagine what I do for me and mine. Believe that. So like for me, it just was like, that's why it was just like, yo, let me just say like, thank you for the opportunity, because that season was good for me. Now, thank you for like letting me go, and now I just get to go chase it.
And so, what does that mean to you, though, as well, right? Like to have a supporting wife that gave you the battery in your back, because obviously, like I said, you've been a motivating / always going to get it person, right? But to know that your significant other, your partner, your wife was like, yeah, you here. This is what you do. What does that mean to you?
Well, I would say this, right? It's funny because I believe a lot of things I learned in life I apply in business. So one of the things I apply directly in a lot of mentorship I do is that whenever you're working with subcontractors, whenever you're working with people, partnerships, all that, right? Everybody wants to sell you on something, right? And a lot of times they lying. Yeah. So you trust but verify. See, when you get into a marriage, you can trust something. This person can say something, but it's situational, right? I had a friend, right, who he was with his wife, and then he got MS, and then his wife left him. We thought she was a ride or die, but you don't know till the situation comes up, right? So all it did was, right, all it was like a big stint. Like I already knew, I trusted it, but it was just like when you go through stuff, it's like verified, right? But on the other end, it's the same thing for me, because she saw me get it out the mud, right? She saw me go from homeless to a homeowner in 2 years, right? From like in my 98 Camry to us buying a house in 2 years, and me being like, yo, I got you. That's my whole thing. Like, I promise you, right? Like, I got you. So my credit was built up. So her trust was there, and my trust, but like, it's still like, that's why I said it was my insecurity. It wasn't her actions. And when she just verified again, right? That she's a strong woman, that she, right? That like she's virtuous and understands what it is to be that the wind beneath my wings.
Yeah. And so a part of your name, right, you're on Instagram, is leverage. And To me, that's a very, very powerful word, right? That's a word that doesn't get used as often as it probably should when we talk about financial literacy and wealth and power, all this. So what define leverage for me, right? In your own words, define leverage.
Leverage is taking a small input and creating a magnified output. Leverage is the ability to, well, really, I'll tell you this. What I want people to be able to do is be able to leverage debt to create wealth and then use that wealth to pay off their debt. Because that's what people do when they have money. And when you think about being able to leverage these institutions, is that someone in the negotiation, every contract you sign, anything you get into, someone's leveraging someone. And with the institutions, a lot of times we have these big banks leveraging little people because we don't have the knowledge. Once we increase the knowledge, we reduce our liability, which gives us the ability to leverage the banks.
And talk to me too about the idea of like it's okay to have some sort of debt, because that word debt might scare some people, right? That word debt might have folks saying like, oh, I never want that, or I want to be debt free. So why is it okay to have some sort of debt in your opinion?
Yeah, in my opinion, I often say this, right? Think about anything you know about finances, right? Anything like historically, you just know that you show to tell you like, look, I know this about money, about debt, about wealth, about, right? Where did I read that? Where did I research that? Where did I read that? Or was it told to me? Because when I hear stuff like that, it's like, okay, great. What book did you read that from? What financial literacy podcast, right? Oh, Define Your Legacy? Is that where you got it? Where did you get it from? Right? And it's like, no, well, my mama, somebody, right, who didn't know. Because here's the thing, if you're not financially literate, we don't like to say this. If you're not financially literate, if you can't read, what they call you? Illiterate. You're not just okay, right? Right, if you can't read, right? Like my 2-year-old son, he's illiterate, he can't read. My 8-year-old's literate, she can read. So if you can't read, and then you're telling me how to read, right? How's that gonna happen? So if you can't read money, if you don't really know, and then you go out there trying to read, and then you make a mistake because you're financially illiterate because you haven't done your work. And that's okay, because our job is to build capacity. But when you just you just go out into the world and you're like, look, I'm gonna go and just jump in, and you don't do your homework, and then now you're gonna tell me to not leverage the things that I know through my research to do. But it also comes with like this idea of the psychology of money. Right? We if we're used to being broke, right, and the cycle of what that is, and seeing that around us. I give you an example. When I first came home from college, I had a job paying me $12.50 an hour. I had no real benefits, like something. No, like I was working in the school. I was an in-school suspension teacher, but like when they had winter break, I didn't get paid. Like I was like a 10-month employee or 9-month employee, right? So I'm not making much, but I want to get a new car. And I can get this, and I have a car that works, mind you, right? I bought it off this older lady for like $1,500 off some summer money. So I have it. But I see, right, my mom got this new car. And I'm like, yo, how'd you get the car? I'm talking to her. Now, mind you, I love my mother, right? But she's not somebody who studies finances, who financially is literate like that. She's gotten better over the years because I've given her stuff. But I came home and I went to college. And I came home and you talk to the people around you. And I talked to her and she got this $600 car note. Mind you, it's 2007. And I'm like, okay, cool. So she brings me to the dealership. I'm like, look, I really like, now this is when the Nissan Altima just got the push button. So I'm like, oh, I'm about to, woo, right? I already got my tent guy. I'm about to like, yo, I'm ready, right? And so I pull up and the dude like, oh, well, you had a Sprint bill that my mom put in my name and didn't pay. And he like, it's gonna be 15%. I look at her like, what's that mean for interest? She's like, oh no, you good. What's the car's $24,000. Is that okay? That sounds right. Okay. Your car note is $454. Your insurance is $285. My man, you make $12.50 an hour. What are you doing? But no, that's not what happened. It was, oh, this is a great idea. Car person, right? They're gonna sell me on it. I come home. It took me about 3 months to figure out, yo, this ain't adding up. But it was a hard lesson I had to learn, right? That I had to learn very quickly about you have to know your finances and not rely on other people, right? That are not doing it the way that you want to do it. And then that's when I remember the following year I had got with my old science teacher. I was teaching back at North Free Academy, right? And he put me on and said, yo, I don't care what you do. You're 23 years old. You start her off today. I was like, what? I started with $50 a month. I don't care. It started today. He tried to show me a number. I didn't really get it. But I just trusted the fact I'm gonna put $50 a month, and then I'm just gonna increase it slowly.
Yeah. How old were you at the time?
23.
23. Okay. So yeah. So to kind of break that down too, even I know that was a little bit towards the end. It's like, if your income allows it, a Roth IRA can be a very great option for people. Even if you start with like a small amount of investing per month, it goes a long way. And I think too, the idea of saving and investing as early as possible will make the workload less heavy as you get older, right? So this is why we preach the idea of financial literacy and credit building as early as possible. And to your point too, it's like, you said you were 23 when you got that message. So thankfully, someone had mentioned that to you, right? And this is why I say, again, as you know, financial literacy is so important just from an exposure standpoint, right? Like, I think we as African Americans, we have to talk about financial literacy as much as possible because it's not going to be talked about at the school system, right? The reason why the government doesn't talk about it that much when it comes to our people, right? Like, it has to start with us. It's unfortunate, but those conversations have to happen. But how would you say, getting started with financial literacy and credit earlier in your career has definitely helped you?
I would say that because I'm somebody like I said, I didn't come in like knowing what to do. I just lived. One of the things I got on my wrist, I got it from a lady out of Atlanta, was sometimes you got to do it ugly and figure it out. I started with like a 525 credit score, but what it came down to at the end of the day is like, man, like I can't speak for everybody, but you got to remember who you are, right? Like when I walk into a room, I feel like what you know about me and my reputation should precede me. So what I mean by that is like my credit history is a good indication a lot of times of the discipline things that I do in my life. When I was undisciplined, my credit was undisciplined. When I was reckless and wasn't thinking long-term or moving in a way that was meaningful, it reflected that. So looking at that, it was like I wasn't taking advantage, right, of the credit available and what I can do with that credit because I was following the wrong system. Once I started following a different system, now mind you, it got me into more consumer debt. And that's this idea of trying to keep up with the Joneses, trying to level up your living. I'll pay for it now with the immediate gratification and I'll figure it out later, which you usually don't figure it out because you have that set income. So what I learned very quickly was that now that I got my credit up, I'm like, all right, good. But and like I spend the money and then like I'm growing this debt and I was like, oh, I'm either going to have one or two ways of living. I'm going to minimize how I live in order to make sure I can save enough, or I'm going to increase the activity and increase the streams of income I'm going to have. And I think by getting laid off, what it taught me was that no organization, no person will ever have the opportunity to cut all the water off them. So if I have 6 arms, yeah, you can take one, maybe you get 2 if you're lucky, right? But I still got another 80% there of my income that's coming in. And because I have grown as an authority, because what I also do is help people understand their expertise. How do you leverage your expertise? So I started off, right, being a college basketball player, going around coaching. And then it was like, well, look, you're a brother from around the way who's been to college and has done some things. Why don't you come talk? I leverage that platform from, turkey dinners to being paid, right, $500 to $7,500 a speech. So now when I operate, I move differently in that I have an expertise. Like I have an ability to be like, all right, cool. This side income. This is 60, 90 minutes worth of work. Right. I had an event earlier this week, right? It was a virtual $5,000 event. So it's just like one of those things where you're like, look, that ability to make that type of income, I need to know what to do with it, right? And also how to leverage it, because why would I use my money to go purchase something when I can leverage someone else's money, meaning the banks, right? Because when I put my money in their institutions and just leave it there, that's what they're doing. They're going out lending it, or I give them my money, they give me 0.001, and then they leverage it back to me at 8%, 6%. Like, I hear you, cool. That's okay for me, because if I got 50,000 in this vehicle and that vehicle is, and that money vehicle is bringing me back a return at 20%, then why would I take the 50 to go buy that $50,000 car? Right? That's why we're here, right? It's like, oh, I'm financially literate. I'm going to take all my money. I'm going to take a big part of my money, and I'm going to. Why would I do that if my money is making? No, your money's sitting in the bank, so you don't care about it. But if your money's sitting in a brokerage, your money's sitting in a place where you have access to it, but it's making you money at a higher rate, then you're going to then take that. You're going to leave that money where it's at and leverage the bank's money, because your ROI is more. And then I just started doing that and able to acquire more properties and able to start more businesses.
And that idea with the way inflation is, and I say this so often, but it's almost like you don't have a choice but to invest. So it's like, I know how risky or how scary it might be for some people saying like, oh, I'm nervous to use credit. But with the way inflation is, y'all, like, one, like, I never use my own money personally, and I know just the idea of like with all this credit talk, it might make some people nervous, but it's low key required. And break that down too to me as well about the how to leverage your expertise. I like that question, and I know you mentioned you had some you have speaking engagements on that, so you can save some of the sauce for the back pocket. But if you could, for people out there, because that's a real thing, right? I think like there's so many ways to make money and stuff, but how to leverage your expertise and really identifying what it is that you're good at, right? Identifying what your specific expertise is.
Right. So most of us have been working somewhere in a variety of places where we have learned a system, we have learned a tool, or we're managing one for a bigger corporation, but have never thought about doing it for ourselves. And what I get to is that, or we have done something, but we're working in it and not on it, so you don't have that bird's eye view. Mm-hmm. What I do is I come with the bird's eye view, and you show me what it is that you're doing, and I go, okay, great. I'm just good at picking out talent and knowing, right? One of the biggest strengths you can have is knowing your limitations. See, I know my limitation. So when I know my limitation, it's so easy to see people who I know are great in things I'm not great at, because I also know my strengths. Mm-hmm. So when I look at something, I go, you've been, I got a friend out on Long Island. Like, you've been coaching basketball for a long time. I haven't seen you start a camp. You haven't started any one-on-ones. You haven't. Well, no, I got a friend out in Middletown who does it. He does it full time. He actually quit his job at UConn and does that full time. I can connect you. Also, I can help give you some of the blueprint. This is how you can do it. Now he full-fledged, got the merch, but he wasn't thinking like, yo, I've been doing this for so long. I got a guy right now out of Springfield. Last year, he bought one bounce house for $300. We talked, and I said, yo, do me a favor, right? And I got this from one of Gary V's speakers, John Henry. I went to an event he had. He said, stay down for 24 months. Just stay down for 24 months. Two summers for some of y'all, how y'all like to count time, right? Stay down for 2 summers, right? And then by the time you stay down till you come up. He just grinded, didn't take any money, right? All money in. We showed up this year. I'm like, all right, cool. What we looking like? I bought 12. What you mean 12? So I got 12 more. You have 12 bounce houses? He's like, yeah. I got my cousin helping me now. And now we flooded every weekend making like $25,000 to $3,000 a weekend. I said, okay, so how you all money in? He's still all money in.
Still.
Right? He didn't see the expertise. So now what we're doing is, you're going to see him. His name is Bounce House Poppy. I coined it, so I want y'all to know, right? That's my guy, right? But I'm mentoring, so I'm always going to give him a shout out. But my thing is that he's going to teach people, right, how to start with $300 and start making $15,000 to $3,000. Because he didn't think what he,
Through bounce house rentals.
Correct. And then now people like the barrier entry is low, and and the way that he does it is that he creates an experience where he charges like $150 or something like that for the day. He doesn't even go hard, because his thing is his clientele, understand his demographic, right? And the people that he want to give an experience to. And then now he's adding on. He just added some tables, some chairs, right? So we're making it a whole experience. What I'm saying though is that the other bag he's leaving is the intellectual property. So now we're creating, right? We just created the lead generating PDF. We're creating the course. We're getting it all going. Look, finish your breakfast. We want the bacon. I want everything. I want all the butter with the toast, right? I'm sweating I want all of it, right? So that's what we're doing. Teach you how to leverage your expertise. So for me, it was like, I was speaking, but I didn't know speaking was a business. Now this is where we get into leveraging systems. Cause I didn't get more money till I edified myself. All right, you got to get on different platforms. So then you want NBC Black. Now you on Fox News. Now you're doing this on the Griot. Now you wrote articles for this business. Now you did TED Talk. Now you're over here, right? Like you're on these national platforms. Edification. Now you're at these colleges, right? Edification. Now you're building these relationships, but really now you need a system. So I had to go get me a virtual assistant. Then I went ahead, before I had my virtual assistant, this is my tip, right? I'm gonna give you a pro tip. And because if you're afraid to give them too much game, you ain't got enough game. Here's my thing. Before you get a virtual assistant and you can afford that $400 a week, you better know a standard operating procedure of what you want them to do, because they will do nothing for you if you don't have a very clear plan and directive of what you want them to do. But prior to that, I was my virtual assistant. So you got an email from me that came from Passion Hunger Drive, right? And it said Lisa at the bottom, event coordinator. That was me at the time. I was Lisa. I'm Lisa. But you know what happens? Lisa sends emails at 8:00 on Mondays, exactly, because they're scheduled. Lisa follows up about her money and wants to make sure the paperwork's right. Lisa wants to make sure you have everything that's in my contract when I get there, right? So now I get to separate the business from the relationship. So when I come there, I get to kiss hands and shake babies, and you know what they like? They like me to come do that, make them feel really good, do what I do best, and then ask me to come back. Because Lisa sent the feedback form 2 days later. Because we have a system, right? And then with that, it went from like, $1,500, $3,000, $5,000, right? Now, $7,500, okay, let's get it, because I've edified myself, right? Like that's the system, right? Getting into your reading, right? The E-Myth Revisited was a great book for us, right? For me and my book club. But getting into trucking, right? So I have 2 trucks. Getting into the trucking industry. I cannot drive my truck. I don't have a CDL. Someone asked me if I wanted to get it. I said no. They're like, why not? I said, because if I get it, then that means now I'm liable to go pick the truck up if something happens. But now, because I can't, right? Now I have to be able to manage my way about the problem. Manage my way, not be the technician, not be the physical person doing it. I'm managing it. I don't dispatch my truck. I don't drive my truck, right? I don't do my IFTA taxes. I don't do any of that, right? I have a system for that. So I leverage automation and I leverage systems. And that in essence allows me then to manage it. I have a car rental business. We have 6 vehicles. I have 1 up here and 5 in Atlanta. I leverage partnerships. Once again, when you get into a partnership, I have the money in cash. He had the time and availability, right? And he's good with people. So run the play. But then lifestyle, like I wanted a nice car. So I wanted me a nice new Range. So I picked it up and then said, we're going to rent it 10 days out the month. Because I just don't like paying for stuff. Right? The same way with my properties. I house hacked myself to 4 properties. I just lived, found another program, lived, found another program, moved, lived. And then I had 3, I leveraged one of them and then took that money and a home equity line of credit and then bought the 4th house, which is the brand new house that we live in over here. Hmm. And then the other properties pay my mortgage because I don't like paying the mortgage.
Hmm. So you don't like paying for things?
Oh, no, at all.
So and I want to make that as, excuse me, as real as possible for people to understand, right? So between house hacking, trucking, Turo, speaking engagements, mentorship, all these different things, right? Why don't you stick to just one thing? Why do you feel the need to like, all right, you know what? I want to have a piece of this pie, a piece of that pie. Why is that important to you?
I hear you. So one idea would be like, you find somebody you're going to follow, right? Find somebody that you're going to like mentorship is so important, but sometimes mentors are not even people who know they're your mentor because you're watching them, right? So me and LeBron's 3 months older than me, right? So when I would go to my high school games, I would come home from my high school games and watch his games on ESPN. Right? I remember when he 8th grade Orlando Nationals, he's out there dunking, right? Like, look, we're talking about LeBron James, right? So with that, LeBron just hit $1 million, didn't he? I mean, $1 billion.
Yeah, with a B,
yep. $1 billion, right? My bad. But you look at it, right? How he get there, right? Spring Hill, right? His media company, his real estate, his investments in like Blaze Pizza and other things, right? Like Dre Beats, all this. Multiple streams of income, but before he had the multiple streams of income, he had one. Right. So for me, it wasn't that. It was that, look, I still do contract work, like consulting work. Like I work right now with the state of Connecticut, where I'm helping implement the Black and Latino studies curriculum, and I do a lot of racial equity and social justice work. Right. So like that is a thrive of mine, right? To do that work for the students in Connecticut to really help, right, around the lens of racial equity and social justice. So when things are coming up, I come in crisis mode sometimes, right? But I get the bag, and I come in and helping from technical assistance in a strategic lens, right? We're talking about the nation's first mandatory Black and Latino studies curriculum. So that right there, right? If I want that just pays me in. So everything else, I count them as buckets, and these buckets I already ate, so I'm not full. So these buckets get to go run for me. They get to go find how to get more water, right? So each bucket is just, how do I make it so that this system can create more and then be self-sufficient, or as self-sufficient as I can make it. So for me, it's not about sticking, because I already did. Like I edified myself within the consulting and speaking lane, where I'm like, all right, cool. Like I have more than enough from like the way I live my life. Now I'm taking this, and this is about like, how do I build retirement? How do I build legacy? How do I go ahead and live the lifestyle I want to live and leverage the things that are there? It's really for me, it's like, yo, if you go to a restaurant and they come out with an appetizer and they hit you with them Philly egg rolls, right? They get you a couple wings. If you don't know any better, you wouldn't ask for the entree. You wouldn't ask for the rest of it. Like, so I'm just like, yo, I know there's more. And my thing is that if there's more, then like I want it. Like right now, I'm like, hopefully, right? I'm working on it, but I'm finishing up my doctorate program at UConn. Once again, and this is the thing, and I get it. Some people might ask me like, Malik, when is enough? I don't know, but what I can tell you is that I know that I'm a 1%er, and as being a 1%, I want it, and I want it all because I'm on overtime. Right? I'm just a kid, small city, big dreams. Like I ain't supposed to be here. But I'm here now. And if I'm here now, I'm creating my own reality.
Yeah. And look, I knew and know the answer, right? Like, there ain't nothing wrong with having multiple streams, but I wanted people to know. And you brought up a good point too, with the bounce house rentals, like the idea of establishing one guaranteed stream and then tapping into like the digital products or ebook or educational route, right? It's like, all right, let's guarantee the bread in this one stream, and then let's go tap into another. But I think it's important not to skip any steps, which you haven't, right? It was like, okay, you made sure to handle this, and then let's move on. We're gonna handle this, and then let's move on. It wasn't like, oh, you were half-assed in any of it, right?
Well, you bring up a great point, because here's my thing is that, and I often say it, is you play basketball, right?
Mm.
Did you play any other sports?
No, not at all.
Okay. But if as a basketball player, right, you know how to run sprints, right?
Yeah.
If I told you to run sprints on a football field, you could run them.
Mm-hmm.
If I told you to run sprints, if you were a soccer player, you could run them. You could run them if you were a lacrosse player, right? Once you learn certain things about business, every business you go into, you start at 40%. Like, I already know, like, once I knew how to set my LLC up, that's every LLC. Once I got my personal business credit together, my debt to income and all that, that's for every business I start. Once I understood how to structure my business, that's for every business I start. Once I knew who and what relationships to have in order to get business credit. Last year alone, I had this one company find me $300,000, just over $300,000 worth of auto and equipment financing. $300,000 in business credit. It's not a mistake. And they were in two different businesses. But you start at 40. So people keep thinking you're starting at zero every time. It's like sports. It's like, I played football, I played lacrosse, I played basketball. When I played lacrosse was more like basketball than anything. I get the ball top of the key, right? Mm-hmm. I attack, someone sets a pick, I come off the pick, someone comes to defend me, I spin off of them, and I go towards the goal. They go a swim move, right? You do it in lacrosse, you go out like this and you swim move. What's that remind you of back in the day? A hop step. Mm. There was no, so if I'm going in, I'm doing it in and out, hop step. It's the same thing in lacrosse, in and out, hop step. The same thing in ball. What are you doing? Okay, I'm in front of the goal, I'm posting up. Once again, it's the same, once you have it, it's that multi-sport athlete thing. Like now, that multi-business, that serial business thing where it's like, all right, so I already know how to do all these things, boom, 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 boom. Now I just gotta get the mentorship, because I know how important that is. Study the business, the industry, and understand really, right, what problem am I solving, where to get the money, right, and have the reserves in order to brave any storm.
Mm. Yeah. So I feel like those are, important questions to ask yourself before you start anything, right? It's like, where exactly are we and what do we plan on doing? But you mentioned LLCs, right? So let's jump into that, right? The idea of, obviously we talk about having a business and what it means to have leverage, but in order to get to that point, you still need some sort of structure, right? So how does a person, right? Because all this is about protecting yourself as well. But what exactly is an LLC? Let's start there. And then why is it needed? How do we file for one? What's the overall process and importance of it?
Okay, cool. So when you talk about an LLC, the idea is that it's a legal structure for business operation and asset protection. So in other words, as you make more money, as you have more exposure, right? You're going to need the ability to save more money and to have more protection of your assets.
Right. So if someone were interested into getting their LLC, what would be like the first initial steps? What would they actually have to do?
Okay, cool. So one of the things that you want to know is typically when you're taxed as an LLC, there's a bunch of different ways you can form it, but no one's ever taxed as an LLC. You're taxed as a sole proprietor, a partnership, or an S corp, right? I definitely focus more on people who are sole proprietors or partnerships, or known as multi-member LLCs. And then also letting people understand the importance of, when you make over a certain amount of income, you need to start talking about being an S corp for tax and liability purposes. But we're talking about, look, I was a entrepreneur. I know what business I want. I'm getting into that business. First thing is first, and you got to do this right. I just had a business I was consulting with, and they were like a smoothie, sea moss type business. And they just jumped in, right? Started doing business without having everything, doing the Cash App business. Now they got to make things legal. And guess what? That name they had was taken. Right. So first thing first, get the business name. Here's the other thing. Most states, and people don't know this, if you know you have a good business name right now, like right now, I know I'm about to do I'm gonna do this conference called Gentleman's Retreat. I can go to the state secretary's office and ask them to reserve that name for me. Before I'm even ready, I can ask them to reserve that name for me. But let's get back to what it is. Decide on a name, and then check that name. I Google it first, right? I'm gonna Google the name, then I'm gonna go see if it's trademark. Because those are my first thing. I want to know, is it a website? Is it trademark? Then I'm gonna go to social media, because you can play around with social media. You can put a hyphen, a dash, an underscore, right? If you need to. But those are the three places I'm checking. But most of all, I'm going, like Connecticut specifically, you go on Concord and you go and you search up your name and that name, and you see if it comes up, right, on the search. But that and the trademark. You can still have it, but you might, if you want to trademark that thing later and someone already has it, now you also gotta know your categories of trademark. Someone can have it, right, but they might have it in a different category than what you want it for. Okay, so I want you thinking about that when you're looking, to be very specific on making sure that you read what that person trademarked. So just making sure that your name is available, so that you can create that website, you can have that name. Also, name wise, there's other two things you want to think about. One is, do you want it very much connected to your industry? So like, I have Freedman's Transportation. That was important for me because I took it from the Freedmen's Bureau, right? After Black people who were enslaved were then constitutionally set free. They created the Freedmen's Bureau, the Freedmen's Bank, right? This idea that we're going to connect people, right, in transportation back to their families upriver. We're going to connect people, right, back to their communities and have this bank and things of that nature. So I called it Freedmen's, right? But the transportation is the part that I want you thinking about, because transportation can be a little risky. Or you might have, I might do like Malik Champlain. I remember before I had one LLC back in the day. It was Champlain Realty. That's risky. Banks don't want to lend to that. Just being honest. Transportation they do, right? They will, but they might get a little funky based on what's going on, right, in that industry. Some people might do, you might do MC Holdings. You might do something that's a little bit like, maybe, my daughter is Nia, so I might do like Nia or Naomi or Mason, right? I might do an NNM, right, enterprise. Sometimes you want to keep it ambiguous based on what it is that you're doing. So you want to think about that as well, because when you get into the lending part, they're going to look and then be like, hey, does that really fit into what we're trying to lend towards, or our risk assessment? Because that's all lending is, right? Is this person, right, within the next 12 months, within the next 90 days, the next 24 months, going to default on their credit? All right, number two, you have a registered agent. Now, when you go and you do your little legal Zoom and all that, you can do that, and I get it. They're gonna hit you for like $600, and what they're not gonna tell you is that they're gonna be like, oh, we'll be your registered agent. And then the first year they're gonna say it's $100. They're gonna hit you. And then if you on your money, you're gonna notice. If you're not, I don't know what the money. You're gonna look at it back like afterwards and be like, dad, that came out. Then they're gonna hit you again the next year, but it's gonna be 200. Then it's gonna be 300. Then it's gonna be, they go up $100 every year. So you gotta ask yourself, for something that's free, right? If you were an American citizen, right, or a citizen of that state, and you were over 18 years old, you can be a registered agent. You can be your own registered agent. But here's the other thing I'm gonna tell you is that in most cases, I want you not being a registered agent, right, for your own company, just because, you don't have to, you could, but I just don't want you using your own home address.
Yeah.
That was one of my biggest things, right? Let's say for real estate purposes, I have really good tenants, but let's say I have a tenant and I got to evict that person. That person's like, oh, okay, player, I'm gonna pull up, right? Now, mind you, I'm gonna give you everything you're asking for. However, I don't want them problems. I'm trying to mitigate them problems, right? I think my man Fat Joe was like, I'm not a gangster anymore. Like I'm So for me, it's like, I don't want those problems. I want you to be able to, like, if you're filing for something, but then here's the other thing is, it also helps with a clearer separation of who you are and who your business is. Because see, your business, right, is like a different child of yours. It's this avatar that you have to grow up, right? So you want to separate those two, because legally, if something happens, right, one of my properties or one of my trucks, somebody gets hurt or something happens, that business, that organization is at fault. Not me. That organization is his own person. It's his own avatar, right? So just I want you thinking that way. Next, you got to get a copy of your articles of organization.
Wait, hang on. Before we move on to number 3. So number 2, a question I had is, how does, for the registered agent part, because I agree, using your home address and your residence and all that can be a little dicey. But so where would someone go to find a registered agent? Like, is that like you get like an auntie and uncle, or is it like a little more formal? Or like, what could be the process for someone to avoid using their actual home address and finding a registered agent?
Perfect. I think, well, one of the biggest things is that the reason why they even need it is because in case like there's a subpoena or something, some legal document, they say they want to make sure that they're sending it to you, but they're going to send it to them too, right? So they got somebody else that basically that they can send it to. I mean, you can pay like $85, $75 to have somebody do it for you, but really like, I know we all know somebody who has a commercial property or who has a business or something like that. So like I had a friend of mine who he had a property spot on Hartford, and I was like, cool. Hey, do you mind if I use you and use your business address? He was like, cool. Now the biggest thing that you need to know is that when you have that, right, you want to make sure that the registered agent, they're not going to approve your LLC until the registered agent responds back to them. And a lot of times they only give them like 2 days or 48 hours to respond after you apply. So you apply, you say, hey, look, they're going to send you this. I need you to send it right back to them. And it's real simple, like 2 buttons and you're good. Like, I approve it, I'm with it. I'm going to support that. But the other thing is right, like I've used my wife before and then use our virtual address. So out here in Windsor, 360 Bloomfield, right off 91, you see off the highway, it says 360 right in Windsor, and it's a big corporate location. And we have a suite there and we use a virtual address.
Cool. Okay. But yeah, I just want to acknowledge that part too, because if a lot of people are doing it as like individuals are doing it by themselves and they figure, all right, I'm just going to use my own address and I'll be fine.
Also, you can also change it, right? So if you're like, look, I'm trying to get started, I want to use it, right? Because a lot of people working from home, and I get it. Yeah. I got this consulting company, but my biggest thing is that it's about what the banks see too. So when the banks look me up and they go, oh, because if you forget, the banks Google you up when you apply. They look up your information and they go, oh, he lives in this in this apartment building. He lives at this house, this location. That's more mom and pops. But when they go and they're like, oh, he's suite 201 at this corporate location, like that's different. Like, okay, that's a real entity. Yeah. He has a 1-800 number. He doesn't have a Google address. He has an info app, right? Like an organization would, right? You start structuring. And that's what I help people do, right? How do you structure so that they lend you this money? So then I want us to get a copy, right, of your articles of organization. In some states, it's your certification and formation. And that's really your filing of the business, right? You got to pay for it. And in a lot of states, it's $50 to like $150. So it's not much. Connecticut is $120, and it's $120 to change anything. So if you got to change a name, make sure you know your right name because you have to pay for that. If it's an address, it's okay, but you just got to pay the $120, and they change it for you. To make an addendum to what you have on file.
Yeah. You said 120, right? As of right now, as of this recording, that's less than a pair of sneakers. It's but so we have number 2, right? So number 1, we had established a name, right? Google it, make sure it's available, and also too, I mean, you can check what the Secretary of State website, right, for to see if the LLC name is available, right? And then number 2, we have getting that registered agent. If you don't want to use yourself, right, use or at least if you don't want to use your permanent address, going a different route, correct? All right, cool. So we got those 2 things, right? So what would you say number 3 is, right? We got the name, the registered agent. What would you say number 3 is?
So, all right. So number three is that you have to go to your state secretary's office, and then you have to actually file the articles of organization, which is really the filing document to make this an official legal business. It's your business filing for whatever state that you're in. There are some states, though, right, that when you do this, they're asking for a certificate of formation, right? And that's like Connecticut. Connecticut does that. So sometimes when you go to certain banks or certain places, they'll ask for your articles of organization. And the reason why I bring up the difference is that you're going to be like, well, I have this, and it's the same thing. It's just they need your filing for the state, so it can go up on the information that goes up on the state website.
Gotcha.
Because you have to understand, there's some states, right, when you file that, it has to go in the newspaper for 2 weeks. You have to pay for it in the newspaper for 2 weeks. So I know like there's New York does that, and then there's another state that does that as well. Arizona just overturned it, but it's bizarre because right, it goes up on the website, which is very similar, like it's like a digital newspaper. So I think most places are moving away from that, but just it can get a little quirky based on your state. But I think what people want to know is, how do you form that? What are they asking? What information do they want to have on there? They're going to ask for your business name. They're going to want, right, your business address, which I typically say don't have it your home address. Even if it's a virtual address, it costs you $50, $60, right, a month, but you'll have your stuff going there. And like Regis, I don't get paid by them, but that's REGUS. If you pay a couple extra dollars, they'll forward you the mail. If you pay a couple extra dollars, you can use the ladies, the front secretary ladies will answer the phone and then forward the message to your cell phone as if you have a secretary. Okay. So we talked about edification, right? How important those things are, right? When people call you, and it's not just, hey, I get direct access to a cell phone. The purpose of your business, right? So you start getting these the numbers that come with your business. Are you in real estate? Are you in trucking? Are you in advertising and marketing, right? Hospitality. There's a number that goes with your company. And then also lastly, how your LLC will be managed. Will you manage it like someone in the business, or will it be someone like, will it be member managed, or will it be a management company?
Okay. And you said it's called articles of organization or certificates of organization?
Yep. So articles of organization or your certificate of formation. Okay. And then lastly, you have your registered agent's information on there too. So all that information, when you go on Concord right now, when you go to the state secretary site, you'll see all that information from whatever business anyone has ever started.
So is there anywhere that you have, like, is it possible to have your LLC be completely detached away from your personal name, like not have your personal address anywhere near the LLC?
So my man Ant Smith, it will be the guy to get into trust, but it's trust. That's how you get in. That's how you get into that. Because then the trust, right? You're managing the trust, but the trust is its own entity. It has its own types of protection, and there will be a trust. So my mentors, they usually talk to me about that. It's about getting something into a trust, because a lot of times, especially with real estate, what will happen is you might own some real estate, and then someone will look you up, and then they'll see all the LLCs you have, or they'll see all the properties you have. Because you can even look up the deed for your name, right? Now you become a higher risk, right? And this is why a lot of times, like when I would be at some of my properties, and I would at first be cutting the grass, they'd be like, "Oh, do that old white lady, like, does she own the place?" I'm like, "I think so. I just cut the grass. Like I don't need no smoke. I don't like the less you know, the better." And a lot of people making money, they move like that. They not loud. They is not loud because they know the liability of being loud. And I've seen it though, right? Like I've seen it. I've had things like, because I do some social media stuff, and over the last like probably 3 years, I've seen the difference. And like I had a handyman that had to let go because he started being in my pockets, right? Because he knew somebody who knew me and was like, "Oh, this guy is making money." Because if you typically see me, I'm gonna be in a ball cap and some shorts. So, right, we're gonna talk normal numbers. Now all of a sudden, you want to charge me double the price. Now all of a sudden, right, like these things happen, and you see it, and you're like, okay, cool. Like, so, right? More money, more problems.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think that LLC part, and then I think another question that sometimes people want to know is, can I start an LLC in another state?
Uh-huh.
Right, that's a big one, especially because especially being up here, we're so close, and because like state like Connecticut, you have really high taxes. So I gotta tell you, right? I'm not a CPA, so I'm cool, but like the legal way is that you can, but you're gonna be a foreign entity, you're gonna get double taxed. It a lot of times doesn't make sense unless sometimes you have a partnership, and then like so having a partnership with somebody in Georgia, and then we be like, hey, our location is in Georgia. Which make because I live here, but like we run business majority out of Georgia. So we're Georgia based, and then that's gonna be less. But you'll see people, right, going to Nebraska, going to these other places because they got the lower, right?
Yeah, I think Wyoming was another one that I saw.
So it's like a lot of these places, especially with the trucking industry, right? So that's why the DMV is doing so much more catching people and trying to catch up to you. So if you want to play the game, right? But just understand, you play silly games, you get silly prizes. Right? I'm very much like, look, keep it legit because I sleep very well, but I also talk a lot of smack when you come for me.
I think what it is, you just have to know what you're doing, right? There's a lot of loopholes and everything in life, and but to be well informed and educated on a topic, that's very important,
So it's a great point. A loophole, as in my Range Rover is section 179 of the tax code, right? The gross vehicle weight is over 6,000 pounds. That means 100% of everything I spend on it, I can write off. See, right? Because the IRS code is just rules to tell you how to move. That seems like a loophole only because like other people or the majority of people don't utilize or know that, right? To do that within a business. But then there's fraud, right? Like all these PPP dudes, right? Miami was real popping, but now people going to court. So I'm always big on like, I feel you, right? You don't think I wanted to go ahead and start claiming some stuff, right? That wasn't true. No, I claimed what I was supposed to claim, right? But that wasn't true. Yeah. But there's a difference between, right, us leveraging what's there to suit us and us fabricating what's there. And then now we're in a position where we're compromised. Because then you can't go back, right? Like once you're compromised as a business, you can't go back because like the business, you gonna be on TV.
Yeah. And again, it's important to know that too. And it sucks too, because again, going back to the whole idea of knowledge and what we know versus what we don't know, it's like, well, if everybody is running up illegally, I'm not just talking about profit, illegally, then it's like, okay, and they're not getting caught. Most people may think, well, all right, I'm gonna try and do that as well. Look, the government is gonna get their money, right? Like Uncle Sam is, however, you can always, I feel like finesse your taxes and claim certain things, but again, there's still structure behind that, and still there's some sort of knowledge that pours in. But how long would you say too? And I'm not sure if there's another step to the LLC formation, but how long would you say the process takes, right? From if you're starting on day one, between you either receiving that the official letter or congratulations or whatever the case may be, how long usually has the process been, would you say, or if you had to guess?
I mean, nowadays I probably can do it in 24, if not less. Like as in like I could do everything I need to do, I can do in like 30 minutes. And then it's just waiting to see if the state wants to take their time and like if the registered agent approves and the state wants to take their time. Because I'm almost certain you probably almost do the same day because I can get my EIN like this, my guns like this. I'm talking about like everything, be ready and have an approved Bank of America credit card.
Bank of America credit card, yeah.
That's what I did with Turo. I just was like, cause they, I know the immediate approval. I just was like, boom. We did Smash House Rentals. We did this, we did that. Boom, boom, and then had everything I needed. They were like, all right, cool. They ran it. And then I was like, all right, I got 10,000 on the credit card. I was like, all right, let's roll.
All right, bet, let's get it rocking. Because that's the thing too. Like when you're not, you don't get it just to like wait and chill, right? You get it like, all right, it got approved. Let's move.
Oh yeah, we already did the homework, right? Like my thing is like, how do you decrease liability is doing the homework and getting the mentorship. Like Like when I paid $5,000 for some trucking mentorship. The first month trucking, I made 25 grand. Right now, mind you, that's gross. You don't keep all that, right? So I kept about, I'm gonna say 7,500 of that because I didn't do any of the work. So if you tell me of all, but I'm big on paying all my bills. Always remember that. I keep my Excel sheets. Those are my babies, and I pay my bills because I want to know, right, who's playing with my money. And that's on me, right? So I'm always on somebody's head, right? So my insurance lady, she already know. I called her the other week. Hey, look, I'm not feeling what we're doing here. Right? I called State Farm. They said, oh, now we can get a better price? Cool. I know. It's on me to be on your head about it. Because when you got good credit, right? When you sit here and now you've been doing what you're supposed to do, I want, once again, because I do it right, I want everything that comes with that. Right? So if I have a credit card and that thing comes with right, your credit card comes with insurance on your phone, let something happen to my phone. If it comes with insurance for your trip, if it comes with your TSA, you get reimbursed. I want everything that you get $50 of Uber Eats. Because I'm reading the details, I want everything that comes with it. So I think it's the same thing when we're doing this. It's just that, like, have the details together. So then when you walking around, you not, because here's the thing. I can't tell you how many people I be talking to, and we rapping and, oh, I got a business. Do you have a business or a side hustle? Some people will say yes. Some people will still lie to my face and say they have a business. Okay, great. Watch this. I'm gonna share my screen and I'm gonna go on, right? And I look them up. Where your business at? Because I already looked you up. You ain't got no business. So you must be doing a different state. What state? I can look that up too. Well, well, what? No, I'll wait. Right? Once again, it's just either you do business or you're not. And having a side hustle is all right. You got to start, but then you got to stop and then be able to take it because the money is so different. Like the leverage you have is so, like, you're paying everything cash. Where I'm like, yo, you could be going on that trip for free. Right? You could be getting those gift cards from Macy's. Like, yo, bro, I'm barely paying for Christmas. Right? Like, yo, oh, we got a little anniversary. Okay, boom, wifey. Let's go ahead now. I need that Visa gift card. I need some Macy's stuff. I'm gonna go ahead, make sure she's straight. What? I just don't. Once again, you said it earlier. I don't like paying for stuff.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, 100% hear you. I personally don't like paying for stuff either. And slash credit for everything slash. Yeah, because I react that way when you said, yeah, they use all cash. Oh, no, yeah, unless it's like, for an investment or something like major stuff like that.
Look, I could have bought a brand new house over here. At the time, it was like, right, it was before everything was going crazy. It was, and I'll give you real numbers. It was like 310,000. And instead, right, I waited. I was like, something gonna happen, right? They just, because they built some new houses, this nice little community. And I said, you know what? Somebody got pregnant or something like that. They're not from the area. They just moved. So the house was gonna be under foreclosure. They had a short sale. And and once again, if you know me, I don't brag about the money I make. I brag about the money I save. So I came in and grabbed a house for $240,000. It took me 6 months, but when you come with good credit, you got the money to finance, to take care of it and everything like that. My man, what are you going to do? Make me wait? I like where I live now. And we just wait. It took 6 months. They were trying to get me to buy at 300. I wouldn't. They said 260. I wouldn't. I said 220 at first. I ain't gonna lie. I was really trying to. Then I caught that 240. But this is going back. This is where it ties in. When I moved in, like a week later, one of my neighbors was like, "Wow, you got this house at a good price." If you don't think those folk is looking up how much you bought this house for, and mind you, that info wasn't on Zillow because of the way I bought it. So you had to go down to the town records. You had to go look. So what I'm saying is, if you think people ain't looking up your stuff, ain't looking at your math, right? And I said, oh yeah, I know. All y'all pay 70 grand more than me. That's 70 grand of equity. Now the house worth like 120 more. But all I'm saying is, once again, right? It's about, if you have like your credit together, if you have your business right, now you're in a position where all I did was take some money out my other property. Was like, yeah, I need like 20 racks to close on this. Boom, we close. And then now I owe that money. Let's say it's $300 a month I owe for 8 years. But the place I moved out of, I'm making $900 a month.
Mm-hmm.
Like netting.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, other people are paying for me to live here.
That's the goal, right? To have, other people pay you. So other people are paying you to live.
Yeah, like my student loan, I stopped that a long time ago. I was like, oh, okay, like back in 2015. I was like, yeah, y'all can pay that. So my Sallie Mae, they paid that off before they converted and all that. And then U.S. Department of whatever, other people pay that.
Yeah. And now, with student loans, again, as of this recording, federal student loans, some of them being on pause and you don't have to make payments. It's like you use that money to invest, right? Like if you have student loans right now and you don't have to pay them because the payments are frozen or there's no interest being accumulated, you can always use that money to invest, right? Again, with the way inflation is and all that. But either way, thinking in terms of like, all right, I know I could pay off this debt, but it's not the same as if I invested it. So that's always an alternative.
No, 100%. And I would tell you, my first 3 properties, I paid $1,800 to acquire, $2,400 and $2,100 dollars, all in, just with the $1,000 down and everything.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, then they generate me enough money to pay for, right, my living and for some bills. But it's like, once again, it's leveraging those city, state, and federal programs.
Yeah. And there you go again with that word, again, leverage. And with that ties into even the beginning of this episode, right? Leverage, 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 and asking you kind of what that means to you, right? And defining that word. And so when we talk about your story as a whole, right? The idea of at one point you were, living out of your car, right? You being laid off before making that transition into fatherhood, having the encouragement from your wife to kind of keep going. And now, having multiple income streams. And more importantly, in my opinion, more than all those things is now helping and showing other people the way, right? Dealing with 10 to 12 years of going through that rat race and going through the highs and lows and developing a new perspective, I feel like, right? Looking at life completely differently because no one is born with the mindset of, all right, I got to get money. Like literally, I think some of that is a result of just, life experiences and to see where you're at now. And I say all of that, right? Because it leads me to the final question that I have for you. It's a question that I ask everyone that's been on the show, Define Legacy. And that question that I have for you is, how do you want to be remembered?
I would say I would want to be remembered as somebody who gave. My favorite book is The Go-Giver, right? It talks about the 5 stratospheric laws of success. The first 3 are very important to me. So the first one being, I always want to be known as somebody who gave to people, right? I think the best investment that you can have is in people, who gave to them more than he asked to receive, right? Who gave more in payment than he received. And that's why when it comes to like taking the time to speak to people, to share my knowledge or anything that I have, I'm always big on that. And then the second one is I want to be somebody who has the ability to increase the number of people that I serve and the value in which I serve them. So I would say looking at that is just that, like, just wanting to touch and influence as many people. Something I live by, right, is if you have read Malcolm Gladwell's The Outliers, he has the 10,000 hour rule, right? He talks about that. And there's like this idea that it takes 10,000 hours to get to mastery. And for me, when I talk about like mastery, is that like, it's not my ability to be perfect, it's my ability to persist in the face of adversity, right? So I want people to see, right, that passion, that hunger, that drive. And it's interesting because I say people, and I do want people to see it, but really I want my children to see it, right? I want my wife to know it, right? Because those are the people that I expect to be speaking at my eulogy. And then by osmosis, by just living in my community and being active, I want my community to see it as well. But then I talk about the 10,000 hours, right? Or the 10,000 people that have poured into me. Maya Angelou says that you might be one person, but you represent 10,000. So for me, I really want to be able to break the mold in different rooms and be able to walk in representing all those people, right? Being legacy driven in how I move, and knowing all the ancestors and shoulders and giants that we stand on top of and the footsteps that we walk in. So I want to be somebody who understood where he came from and understood the royal priesthood, the relationship I have to my Black and Native ancestry. And then lastly, I want to pour into 10,000 people, right? Like I want to pour into as many people as I can, and spread that knowledge, that, right, like that living with that passion, that hunger, that drive, but really that your current circumstances don't have to remain that. And I think at the end of the day, our biggest legacy is the blueprint that we leave. Not the money, right? The money good, but it's cash flow. It comes and goes. But it's the blueprint, right? It's not the fact that I stacked up a bunch of fish and I want you to go to the shed and eat the fish. It's the fact that I not only taught you, but I showed you, right? That, you know, at this time of day, we're gonna go fishing. We're gonna fish at these parts of the pond. We're gonna use this type of bait. You're gonna reel them in this way. I showed you the blueprint on how to get it, because the blueprint they can't take from us. The blueprint, the blueprint will always make it that even if you lose it, you can get it right back.
There we go. Yeah. And that, you know, though, that's a very beautiful and powerful feeling. I think like a lot of people are so attached to money, not just because, right, they may not have it, but more so, you know, their inability to get it again, right? But I think when you have that power and mindset, like, all right, you know, I'm gonna make money tomorrow if I want. So I'll make money next week if I want. You know, I'm gonna collect a rental property check next month, or whatever the case may be. I think that may allow you to move a little bit differently. But I think that can be attained, right, through acquiring knowledge and education and things like that. You know,
Yeah,
education.
I would say this: the mailbox phobia,
Mm,
right? When I was a kid, when that mail would come, every time, right, somebody was upset, they was sad, or they didn't want to talk about it, right? My kids, it's funny, it's how you teach them. And I didn't notice it. My kids like, oh, but mail. I'm like, yeah, right? And they like, oh yeah, you got another check, right? They are like, oh, can we go get some ice cream, right? They over here thinking, right? They rich. Like, look, I got money, you unemployed. I want to be very clear about that. However, it's that mailbox phobia. Like I don't have that same. It's like, oh, it's like this. It's like, oh, your car taxes came in, right, on your Tesla. It's $1,200. I'm like, $1,200. All right, cool. You just got $2,500 from this virtual check. All right, I'm gonna just pay that, pay the rest. Oh, this came in. Okay, and then, well, how many bills did you have versus how many checks you made this month? Right? Because a lot of times it's like, man, this is like I get paid every other week. I get paid every other. First of all, I get paid almost every other day, but I get paid 5 days a week off the trucking, flat out, and I get multiple checks, whether it's Section 8 or my people's off the rental. Never mind my other checks that I get from the car rental, all that. So it's like I'm always getting paid. So it's either I'm getting a ding on my phone or the mail's coming in. But my thing is that I don't have the phobia.
That's real. I never heard that before, but that's real. Mailbox phobia, because usually, obviously, when people get the mail, it's a bill or something they don't want to handle or pay or whatever. But on the flip side, it's like, oh yeah, that's, you know, bring in more mail.
Think about it. People be coming in talking about like, I ain't took my mail in like 3 days, bro. Look, you ain't got to ask. First off, I come in the house. Who took the mail?
I'm looking for it. I'm looking for
it, right? And that, like, once again, that anxiety, that it's a different way of living.
Yeah. So that's real. So if you could, though, man, drop your social media, right? Like, where can people find you, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, whatever the case may be? Where can more people get information on yourself and what it is that you do?
Okay, so the name is Malik Champlain. So obviously, if you just Google that in, you're gonna find me. But IG wise, where you're gonna see a lot of my content, at Leverage with Malik. So I use the word leverage a lot because that's why it's in Untitled, because I just do, because it's what I do naturally, right? So you'll find the last 2 nights I did some really dope lives on how to apply for multiple business cards and get approved. how to structure your LLC. Even last night, the 3 myths about business credit, right? So I keep them up there, the lives, for a couple of days, and then I take them off. But just tap in with me. I'm doing some car rental stuff next week to teach people how to turn that liability in your driveway into an asset that can make you $800 to $1,000 a month.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I think you mentioned your page and your name on Facebook. It's literally just your name. So, but I'll leave obviously contact information for link in bio for everyone, of course. And on the Defining Legacy front, y'all, make sure you subscribe to Theus Elijah on YouTube. Follow Define Your Legacy on Facebook. Define Your Legacy with an underscore at the end on Instagram. Theus Elijah on TikTok. DYL Podcast on Twitter. Subscribe to Define Your Legacy on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify. All right, and last but definitely not least, okay, all episodes of Define Your Legacy drop every Thursday at 8:24 a.m. Eastern, right? All episodes of Define Your Legacy drop every Thursday at 8:24 a.m. Eastern, okay? And just like that, man, do you have any final words you want to leave our audience with today, man? It's definitely been a gem-packed episode, but is there any final words? I know, I don't know if we were recording when you said that the spoken word piece, all right, but are there any final words that you either want to leave our audience with or just in terms, just, here's what it is, run? Or if there's a play that you want people to run with. Either one. This is
Okay.
you could, because it could be a difference. It could be some inspiration.
Look, I got you, man. If I'm here on Define Your Legacy, man, look, I told you, I said it earlier, right? If you're afraid to give, I'm not afraid to give, right? I'm not, because what I'm giving all the time, and I tell people is that, and this is other business coaches and people who do stuff. I'm like, I'm always giving people the what to do. Because if you a dog, if you already go get it, if you have a certain knowledge set, you already gonna go do it off the play I gave you. People pay me for the how, right? They have a specific situation, so I'll give you a play. So right now, here's something is that we talk about structuring your LLC, right? So now you have your structure of your LLC, but you want to look good for the banks. So one of the things that you have to make sure that you have is your EIN number, right? So your employment identification number. Once you have that number, then you want to make sure you get your DNB.com, Duns and Bradstreet. Your consumer credit, when you were 18 and you took out that little loan or whatever, you got your little cell phone or whatever it is, your credit started. Boom, right? But for your credit to start with business credit, you have to have a DNB. DNB is the largest. They're the biggest. They're the best reporting. And you need to understand that when you do that, then you can go ahead and start tapping into creating some business credit. But in order to do that, I'll give you the play. Make sure you don't use when you're applying for these loans, right? You want a 1-800 number, right? So ringcenter.com, right? You want to go over there. They're really good, and they give you a 1-800 number, right? It might cost you $10 a month. You want to go to get you a virtual address like Regis. That's going to cost you like $60 a month, if that. And then now you have a virtual address. So that looks good. You want to go to white pages or 411 online. Make sure your business is registered. So when someone Googles you, they see that and they see your business information. When you're done with that, now you have your DNB, you have your EIN, you're looking pretty good, right? Now what I want you to do is that I don't want you jumping straight to the credit card quite yet. I want you building out your trade lines. So I'm gonna give you 3, and here are the 3 that I'm gonna help you with. Uline, Granger, right, and Quill. Those are the 3. They're called net 30s. What's a net 30? A net 30 means that you're paid now, you have 30 days to pay them back. I'm going to tell you this, pay them in 10 days, right? Because how we look at our credit when we go from, I don't know, like 300 to 850. Oh, when you talk about business, right? You talk about your PAYDEX score, your SER score, your SSI score. So now it's a whole different thing. But they want to know, are you paying early, and are you paying on time? Or are you paying early? That's from 0 to 100. So what I do is I tell people, pay 10 days early in the beginning, creating the trade lines. You spend $60 at least. That's going to report to your Duns and Bradstreet. They're going to ask for that. You want to pay $60 at least. Do that for 3 to 4 months. Next, you want to move to your level 2 cards. Your level 2 cards being like your Apple card, your Costco card, your Shell gas card, right? You should be having, and you can use consumer debt. You don't have to have a business yet. Buy all the stuff I'm telling you. Buy stuff you need for the house. Buy toilet paper and stuff. Buy stuff an Amazon card. You already got the boxes coming. Buy it on your business card and use your personal money to make a equity payment to your bank account.
Mm.
Now you have 6 months of your credit being built up under your EIN and you're done. That's looking really good, and you're paying it right 20 days early. You're doing everything you're supposed to do. Now, when you apply, I want you leveraging, and this is my last bar because I'm giving y'all some heat. I want you applying, right? First, I want you to do 2 Amex cards. Amex has charge cards and credit cards. Understand, credit cards mean they have a revolving credit. Charge cards means at the end of the month it's due. All your color cards, your green, your gold, your platinum, those are the ones. Grab one of those, like a green or something like that. Then go ahead and get a charge card, like your everyday blue cash card or something like that. Apply for both of those. It will be one inquiry. And that inquiry will go under Experian. That's one inquiry under one bureau. Then you go to Bank of America. You're going to freeze. If you know your credit rights, you can freeze. You're going to freeze your Experian. Then they're going to go directly to TransUnion. You're going to ask for 2 of their business cards, like Business Advantage, and they have another one like the travel card, right? Now that's 4 cards with one inquiry in each of the things that you need. And then you can either go to Citi or Citizens Bank. Citizens Bank directly goes to Equifax, and you can have 1, 1, and 1 and have 5 cards that potentially would give you anywhere, right? Really between $70,000 to $40,000 of business credit.
And there's the play. there you go. That we always talk about, credit so often, but it's important, again, not just to know this stuff, but to actually apply it, right? And so I, wanted to save the ending for the actual play and the real sauce because of the fact that, I think learning as much as you can is extremely important, but now the next step is executing, actually apply everything that was just taught and discussed in this episode. But again, man, appreciate you for being on the show. But before we wrap up this one officially, I gotta shout out Demetrius. Gotta shout out fellow Define Your Legacy family right there. He made this episode happen. He connected the dots. So shout out to Demetrius, man. So just like that, y'all, another fire episode Define Your Legacy. And just like that, y'all, we gone. Peace.